Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It's Thursday, so you know what that means. It's match preview evening. Flying solo again tonight. Unfortunately, Boz is unavailable. FA Cup this weekend. We take a break from league action. And what a surprise, we have a long trip north, which is what we seem to have every other week in the league. And for the third season in a row, we're going to be making a massive trek to the upper echelons of the country. 2017, it was Carlisle in a replay. 2018, it was Hartlepool in a replay. And in 2019, it's Sunderland in the first round. We'll get onto them more in a little bit. But the back page of today's Medway Messenger is It's Still Special. That is Steve Evans talking about the magic of the FA Cup. Could not agree more. I am of an age group that grew up thinking that the FA Cup was the biggest domestic competition in the world, and unfortunately for one reason or another it's lost some of that magic due to the money of the Premier League and the Champions League and that type of thing. And it seems that the domestic cup competitions now are looked upon as the poor relation by pretty much all the big teams until they get to the later stages of said competitions, and then they do start to take it seriously. I think it's a weird way of approaching these competitions. You can understand it potentially for the likes of your Manchester Cities and your Liverpools and your Chelseas and your Tottenhams, who obviously have Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues and Europa Leagues or whatever to try and contest. But you see teams like Bournemouth and Leicester and West Ham and Southampton and Everton resting all their best players in the early rounds, and you think it's a massive opportunity to win a cup. And there's a big prize at the end of it now as well. And I just don't understand why managers of them types of teams that are, no offence to them, probably not going to get in the top four or win the league. I know Leicester is probably the one that you could say could break in this season if you follow the Premier League. But for the majority of them, they're not going to get in the top four. They're not going to trouble the champions. They're not going to get relegated. So why not go all out and try and win a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup? And it's a trophy at the end of the day. I don't buy into this finishing fourth's more important malarkey, because they don't fill your trophy cabinet at the end of the day. And Steve Evans talks about 2011 when he was Crawley manager and he went to Old Trafford. And I remember watching the game in the pub, and I remember his side having a real go and not really knowing anything about Steve Evans at the time. But I remember the game. I remember they hit the bar late on and probably deserved a draw. And he talks about maybe the influx of foreign managers have had a detrimental effect on the magic of the competition. And he may have a point, but and he talks about the likes of Eddie Howe and Sean Dyche taking it more seriously. And if you remember, Alan Pardew took Crystal Palace to a cup final not so long ago as well. And yeah, it's just a real shame that a competition, like I say, that I grew up, FA Cup day, final day, was a massive day back in the 80s and 90s. It was 10 o'clock in the morning until 6, 7 o'clock at night. And you just used to love to sit down and watch grandstand football focus all the way through to the build-up, see the players in their suits coming out, laughing at some of them. Liverpool 96. Yeah, and right through to the game itself. It was a massive showpiece, but now it kicks off at a ridiculously stupid time. And something I find really frustrating, but that's the way of the world now in terms of football, and the money, revenue and stuff like that obviously takes precedence over pretty much anything else, and it is a real shame. But back to us more specifically, Max Amar talks in the paper about cup success. He's played up there at the Stadium of Light for Carlisle a few years ago in the FA Cup and they lost 3-1. Says he's looking forward to it. Says we have to forget last Saturday as quick as possible, which I think we do. We have to learn from the mistakes we made and make sure that we don't repeat them, because individual errors are hurting us at the moment and costing us points and costing us football matches. But it'd be nice to have a break from the pressures of the league, and I think we'll go up there, probably make a few changes, and we can maybe play without pressure, because I think we're going to be big underdogs. This is a Sunderland side that we've already said plenty of times were in the Premier League 2 years ago, but they're slumming it with the likes of us at the moment for a reason. Like we say, the table doesn't lie, and back-to-back relegations and poor management from top to bottom has seen them plummet to the third tier, and they're desperately trying to get out, and they've got a new manager in Phil Parkinson, and Should make for an interesting fixture, in all honesty. Brandon Hanlon, our front man, talks for the Shouting Men this week, and he says, I want to have a piece of FA Cup history too. Brandon was only on the bench last week when Elliot List smashed in the winner in the last 10 minutes at the Priestfield against Premier League Cardiff and sent us all into delirium. I think my voice managed to hit high notes that I never knew were possible that afternoon on the Matchday Live with Stocky, and it was a great afternoon. There was over 8,000, I think, in the ground, and the place was jumping, and we put on a really good show and deserved our win and got to the fourth round and unfortunately lost to Swansea. And weirdly, it cost myself and Boz and Stocky a trip potentially to the Stadium of Light because we had a cup run and the Swansea game coincided with the Sunderland away fixture, which was then postponed and moved to a Tuesday in February, and with work commitments and family, we had no chance of ever making that. So we are looking at doing the Stadium of Light in March, fingers crossed. But yeah, Brandon says he's looking forward to it, wants to create a little piece of history, wants to be involved and have his own little piece of FA Cup magic, which I think is great. But yeah, right, in terms of other news, Gills related, Adrian Pennock, congratulations, was named Coach of the Year after guiding his DPMM FC to the Singapore Premier League title not so long ago. So well done to AD, rebuilding his career abroad, which is great to see. Josh Wright, our former captain, former player of the year, turned 30 this week, so happy birthday to Josh. Alex Lacey, bit of transfer news as today, signed for National League outfit Notts County, so it'd be great to see him getting back fit and playing regularly, because sadly plenty of injuries hindered his time at the club, and it was a real shame because he came with decent pedigree after being Yeovil's player of the year 2 or 3 seasons back, but it never really worked out for Alex. But we wish him all the best regular games and he can start rebuilding his career again. And finally, before we get on to the match preview properly, Newport County, wonderful touch. It's been announced in the last 48 hours that the late Justin Edinburgh, our former manager, obviously former Newport County manager, is going to be inducted into their Hall of Fame, I think, at their next game, which, like I say, is a wonderful touch from the football club. I spoke to Michael Flynn a couple of years ago, 4 years ago now, sorry, when Justin had just come into the football club, and he couldn't speak highly enough of the guy. And they had wonderful success down in Wales under Justin, took them back into the Football League, got them to an FA Trophy final, I believe. And yeah, still sadly missed, still seems like it's not true. And I know Charlie, his son's doing a great load of work with his Justin Edinburgh Foundation and raising loads of money for a great cause, trying to get defibrillators into all sort of gymnasiums and fitness premises, which I think is a wonderful idea. And it really does hit home, obviously, when something like that happens, how important this type of equipment is. But yeah, wonderful touch from Newport County and richly deserved, I'd say. So I'm sure Charlie, like he always posts on social media, you never get tired of seeing it, how proud he is of the big man, as he likes to refer to him. And I'm sure Justin, if he's looking down, will have a little smile on his face as well. But anyway, Saturday, as I say, FA Cup first round day. As you already know, we travel north to the Stadium of Light to take on these. Should be an interesting fixture against Phil Parkinson's Sunderland. They're probably not quite where they want to be in League One at the moment. They sit outside the playoffs in 7th position. Only a point with a game in hand, so not a disaster, but obviously a club of that size with that budget and that fan base should be plenty higher than 7th in League One. I think that's fair to say. In terms of form, just a rough look, obviously, because it's not a league game. Sunderland have won 2 of their 5 since Phil Parkinson took over. I think they won 2 at home, but they did lose at home in the week. And I was on the Roker Report podcast on Wednesday morning, which was really enjoyable. So thanks for the guys on there for inviting me on. Looking forward to that being published and having a listen back. Well worth a follow, the Roker Report, to get all Sunderland news and perspectives, because it is a really good site. And I remember they retweeted our Matchday Live last season and it went absolutely nuts, sort of 8,000 views, which is crazy and way above and beyond what we normally average. So yeah, go and give them a follow on Twitter. If you get half hour, have a listen. Let me know what you think, as always. But yeah, lost at home to Leicester under-23s in the EFL Trophy in the week. And the guys at the Roker report said it was a horrible, horrible performance. And looking at their side, they wasn't massively under strength, Sunderland. But yeah, I'm sure obviously Phil Parkinson's still trying to find his best 11, still trying to find the right systems, the best systems and formations that suit the players that he's got at his disposal. And it's going to take time. It's never going to be instant, we know that, but I think it's a decent appointment for them. And it just never seemed to go right for Jack Ross. I kept trying to, you know, from an outside perspective, kept thinking he's going to get it right eventually. He has to with that squad, but he didn't. And ultimately he paid for it with his job. And be interesting to see how Parky gets on over the remaining months of the season. So yeah, 2 wins in 5 since he's taken over. Gills have only won 1 in their last 6 in all competitions, but on the road we're unbeaten in 3, which is 2 draws, and a solitary win. So that was the 1-1 draw at Shrewsbury, the 0-0 stalemate at Portsmouth, and the 1-0 win at Accrington. So away from home, not too bad at the moment. In terms of team news for us, Barry Fuller and Matt Willock, I believe, are both back in full training, so we do have a full squad available. I would like to see changes. I think we have to give minutes to those that need it, in case, obviously, we need them in the league moving forward. You don't want a player coming in cold who's been sat in the stands or on the bench for weeks at a time and hardly played. You want them to come in and try and hit the ground running as much as possible. And on that basis, my team would be a team that includes 6 changes from last Saturday's defeat at home to Rotherham. I would stick with Jack Bonham in goal. My back four would be Lee Hodson, Alfie Jones, Connor Ogilvie and Bradley Garmston. I will get onto that in a second for any of those that are thinking Bradley Garmston. I would play midfield, a double pivot of Mark Byrne and Stuart O'Keefe, and I would have Stuart O'Keefe captain the side at the weekend. In front of him, I would like Ollie Lee to play in the 10, Mark Marshall from wide on the right and Ben Pringle from wide on the left. And I would like Mika Mandron to start up front. I think it's a good opportunity to experiment slightly. I know we want to win the match, but we're not expected to win the match. We're certainly not expected to win the FA Cup. And I think it's a great opportunity to try and get Marshall, Lee and Pringle, probably 3 of the new signings that arrived with the most pedigree in the summer, into an 11 and see what they can do. I think if we can get the likes of Pringle and Marshall out wide, delivering good quality balls into the box, then Mika Mandron's strengths could come into play. And my bench would be Joe Walsh, Barry Fuller, Matty Willock, Usain Usise, Alex Jakubiak, Brandon Hanlon and Mick Allen Jolly. I'd give Max Amar a rest this week as the captain. Whether Steve Evans sees it the same remains to be seen. I'm not sure he will, but that would be my 11. Sunderland, like I said to the boys on the Roker Report podcast, if they make changes, they're still going to be strong. John McLaughlin, I think, was in the running for Player of the Year for them last season. He can't get a game at the moment, or has just come back into the side because their other keeper's injured. Surely Phil Parkinson's going to start getting a tune out of Will Grigg and Mark McNulty sooner rather than later. Aidan McGeady shouldn't be playing in League One. Lyndon Gooch is a good player. Luke O'Nien's a player I really, really rate at this level. They've got quality all over the pitch, regardless of whether they make changes or not. I know the boys on the Roker Report said they think they will make changes, and it'd be interesting to see how seriously both sets of, you know, management teams do take this competition. And based on that, in terms of a score prediction, I'm going to say Sunderland 1, Gillingham 1, and then a nice replay. Be Tuesday the week after, I'd imagine. Yeah, 1-1. Goal scorer, I'm going to go for Mika Mandron. Right, that is enough from me this evening. As always, thanks for watching. Oh yeah, just a little bit on Bradley Garmston. I said I'd just sort of divulge why I'd start him. I would do that based on the fact that Thomas O'Connor was today called up for the Republic of Ireland under-21 international squad for 2 games, which means he's going to miss the EFL Trophy game next Tuesday against Tottenham under-23s and most likely the Lincoln game on the Saturday at home. With Barry Fuller struggling recently with injuries, I think we need to get minutes into Lee Hodson and minutes into Garms because we might need them both. Jack Tucker, by all accounts, didn't have a good game last week. And if Barry Fuller breaks down again, suddenly we'd look a bit short in fullback areas. So for that reason, that's why I've gone with Bradley Garmston to start this week. He needs minutes. I still think if he gets a run of games, he can be a decent addition to the playing squad because he's not really played a part this season. I think he's only played once in the EFL Trophy. But yeah, that was my reasoning for Bradley Garmston to play. Like I say, Thanks for watching as always. Thanks for listening. You know where we are. And we'll be back Monday for a Monday review to look back at the FA Cup tie. Hopefully it'll be more positive than last week. And until next time, up the Gills.